The Quran is aware of what the Bible says. It is not endorsing it wholesale, and it corrects it on theological matters where it needs to be corrected. Today we have another exciting episode for you guys, and it's related to another recent video that I made, which was, does the Quran confirm and endorse the Bible wholesale, as many Christian apologists would like to claim, with their argument that some of them think is their greatest argument against Islam, the Islamic dilemma. The Quran endorses the Bible, but yet the Quran contradicts the Bible, and therefore the Quran cannot be true, because if it claims to endorse it, then it cannot contradict it. Therefore, Islam is false, right? This is one way that it can be explained. But as I showed in that previous video, and I just gave 3 examples, but there are many, many more examples where the Quran and the author of the Quran clearly has knowledge of the biblical text and meticulously corrects it. Corrects the errors both theologically, historically, and so on and so forth. But this is another example that I'm going to give in this video that is actually amazing when we take a look at it. The Quran corrects a false prophecy that is attributed to God and the prophet Joseph, or Yusuf alayhi salam, in the Quran. So I'm just going to jump straight into this and show you how the Bible doesn't really fulfill the prophecy or dream or vision of Joseph in the Bible. And there's a specific reason why it could not fulfill it. But the Quran doesn't actually have that problem. It corrects it, and it does actually fulfill his dream. So let's take a look first at what the biblical account is, and then I will go and contrast that with the Quranic account. Okay, so here we have Genesis chapter 37. Let's start at verse 5. It says, Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field, when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brothers said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. So the first dream is his brothers are bowing down to him. Now he has another dream right after that. Then he had another dream, meaning after that he had another dream. And he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So we can see in the second dream, you have sun and the moon and the 11 stars, right? And how does Joseph's father understand that, or what's the interpretation there? Is very clear. The sun and the moon refer to Joseph's father and mother, and the 11 stars are his brothers, right? Okay, so far so good. There's really no conflict, no issue whatsoever, right? But very clearly, there are supposed to be Joseph's brothers, the 11 stars, and the sun and the moon, his mother and his father, bowing down to him. Now, when we see this prophecy or vision or dream supposedly fulfilled in the Bible, we want to know, is this dream of Joseph ever fulfilled in the Bible? Well, the only account that we can appeal to for this supposedly being fulfilled is Genesis 42, when it says, in verse 6, now Joseph was the governor of the land, the person who sold grain to all its people. So when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground, right? So this is later on in Genesis, and it seems like it's fulfilled, right? Because Joseph's brothers bowed down to him. The problem is that there is no mention of his father bowing down to him, and later on, it seems, even if you wanted to stretch it, that maybe you could say his father bowed down to him. But there's one conspicuous person missing from the story who does not bow down to him. And who is that? That is his mother. Now, it's not only that his mother did not bow down to him, it's that his mother couldn't possibly bow down to him. Now, some people say, well, why is that for those who are not familiar with the biblical narrative? And that is because in Genesis chapter 35, Rachel, who is Joseph's mother in the Bible, died while giving birth to his other full brother, Benjamin. And therefore, she couldn't possibly bow down to him because she died long before this even occurred. So the biblical account has Joseph having a dream of the sun and the moon, his mother, father, and the 11 stars, his brothers, bowing down to him. The supposed fulfillment of that is only his brothers bowing down, and his mother not only doesn't bow down, but she couldn't possibly bow down to him in prostration because of the fact she died giving birth to his other brother, Benjamin. Now, some people may say, but hold on a second, Jake, maybe you're not giving a fair interpretation of the text. Maybe you're not being fair. Okay, so let's look at some Christian commentaries of Genesis chapter 37, verse 9. Let's look first at the Benson commentary, which is the top one here. So what does it say about this passage? It says, Genesis 37:9, yet another dream, the repetition of the same thing in another shape, might have taught them that it was both certain and very observable. Behold, the sun and the moon, his father and mother, so again interpreting sun and the moon as his father and mother, here signified by the sun and the moon, were not represented in the first dream, because in the event his brethren only went at first to Egypt, and there did him obeisance, meaning prostrated to him. And it was not till afterward that his father went with them. But conspicuously, again, is leaving out the mother. Why isn't the mother anywhere in the story to be mentioned? Okay, well, maybe let's take a look at another commentary. Let's look at Barnes's commentary, which is just down here, in reference to the second dream mentioned, right? So it says, a second dream is given to express the certainty of the event, Genesis 41:32. The former serves to interpret the latter. And then it says, there the sheaves are connected with the brothers who bound them, and thereby indicate the parties. The 11 stars are not so connected with them. But here Joseph is introduced directly without a figure, and the number 11, taken along with the 11 sheaves of the former dream, makes the application to the brothers plain. So he's saying very clearly the 11 stars are the brothers of Joseph. The sun and moon clearly point out the father and mother. The mother is to be taken, we conceive, in the abstract, without nicely inquiring whether it means the departed Rachel or the probably still living Leah. Now, the reason why it's mentioning this is because Joseph's father had multiple wives and had children with multiple women, and his actual mother, so his mother by birth, was Rachel, and she departed or died at that time, so she couldn't possibly fulfill it. But one other interpretation, somebody might say, but well, it meant maybe it meant mother in an abstract sense, so it can, loosely apply to Leah, who was, maybe a stepmother, or there are other people, other so-called wives or servants of Joseph's father that maybe we can say is the mother. I'll give the answer to both of those in just a second. Well, the first problem is it couldn't possibly be Rachel because she was long gone. She died before that. And it can't be Leah either because she's nowhere found in the narrative to be bowing down to Joseph, nor are any of Jacob's father's servants in terms of those that he had children with, or even those who can be said to be responsible for bringing up Joseph, right? None of them actually in the Bible and the biblical narrative fulfill that in terms of being a mother in any sense, bowing down to Joseph. Then it says here, not even the latter seems to have lived to see the fulfillment of this prophetic dream. So he calls it a prophetic dream, right? In Genesis 49:31 mentions that Leah died. So he's saying, well, it can't even really be her either. The second dream only aggravated the hatred of his brothers, but his father, while rebuking him for his speeches, yet marked the same. And then it goes on further, but the rest of that part is not relevant. So the point is, even if you wanted to interpret it as another figure that can loosely be referred to as a mother, she wasn't alive at the time either, Leah. And anyway, if you wanted to even come up with other figures, none of them explicitly anywhere in the biblical narrative fulfill that by bowing down to Joseph. Okay, that's only two commentaries. Well, let's give a third one, right? let's take a look at Matthew Pools. So he says, he dreamed another dream, and the repetition of the same thing in another shape might teach them that the thing was both certain and very observable. The sun and the moon were not mentioned in the first dream, because in the event his brethren only went at first to Egypt and there worshipped him, as afterwards his father went with them. So that's why it's making a difference between the first dream and the second one. The first dream is his brothers bowing down towards him. The second one has his father, but notice it doesn't mention the mother. He mentions a possible objection. His father did not worship him in Egypt. The answer is, 1, he did worship him immediately by his sons, who in their father's name instead bowed before him, and by the presents which he sent as testimonies of that respect which he owed to him. So even, forget about the mother, even the father didn't bow down and worship him. And then he comes up with this ridiculous answer. Oh, well, you could say he worshiped him in the sense because only his sons or the brothers did. I mean, that's just implausible. 2, it is probable that Jacob did, before the Egyptians, pay that reverence to his son, which was all the rest did, and which was due to the dignity of his place, as the Roman consul was commanded by his father for requiring him to alight from his horse, as the rest did, when he met him upon the way. So he comes up trying to give another example of maybe, well, Jacob did actually bow down to Joseph later on, and it's possible, but there's never clearly mentioned in there. But nevertheless, he doesn't even attempt to give an answer about how the mother fulfills that prophecy or prophetic dream, even attempting to make some sense of the father, never does it with the mother. Let's give another example of a Christian commentary here. So let's go to Pulpit Commentary. It says here, it is apparent that Joseph understood the second dream even more plainly than the first, to a foreshadow in some way unexplained. His future supremacy over his brethren, who were unmistakably pointed out by the 11 stars of the vision. So again, the 11 stars refer to his brothers. And this remarkable coincidence between the number of the stars and the number of his brethren would facilitate the inference that his parents were referred to under the other symbols of the sun and the moon. So again, very clearly stating that the 11 stars are his 11 brothers, and that the sun and the moon refers to the mother and father. It's very clear. Sun and the moon are the father and the mother. The 11 stars are the brothers. And nowhere does it actually show in the Bible really explicitly father or mother, or at the very least, the mother, right? So the question that we have for Christians is, how is this biblical prophecy or prophetic dream actually fulfilled? Where did Joseph's mother ever bow down before Joseph? And in what sense? And you can't even show an example of Rachel, Leah, or any of his father's servant women, or any of his women that took care of Joseph. None of them clearly show any fulfillment in the Bible of bowing down before him. So it seems like a failed prophecy, seems like a false dream, and the prophetic dream is not fulfilled, in which case that would make Joseph in the Bible a false prophet according to Deuteronomy's own standards of what a true prophet is, right? So let me now show you the relevance here. And you saw in multiple commentaries it was mentioned as a prophetic dream. Let's take a look at Numbers 12 just to see this. It says in verse 6, he said, listen to my words. When there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, reveal myself to them in visions. I speak to them in dreams. So this is one way, and it's the same way in Islam, that prophets receive revelation through dreams and visions, right? So this isn't me trying to sneak in my own theology here. Now, just to show you how important this is, in Jeremiah chapter 23, in verse 32, it says, indeed, I am against those who prophesy false dreams, declares the Lord. They tell them and they lead people astray with their reckless lies. Yet I did not send or appoint them. They do not benefit these people in the least, declares the Lord. So we see very clearly that the Lord of the Bible is against false prophets and false prophecies through dreams. He despises that, right? So this is no small matter. If Joseph is supposed to be a true prophet, receiving a prophetic dream that is supposed to be fulfilled in the Bible, then why isn't it fulfilled? And if Christians would like to tell us that it's fulfilled, explain to us how it actually is fulfilled. Now, in relation to the Quran, how does the Quran tell this narrative? Now again, in reference to this argument of the Islamic dilemma that the Quran affirms the Bible and that it completely endorses it, and so therefore we can't actually call Christians to Islam, or the Quran is contradictory because it claims to endorse the Bible and yet it contradicts it. Well, as I showed, the author of the Quran meticulously corrects the Bible. And this is just another example here of where we'll see the Quran meticulously corrects the Bible by correcting this false prophecy or issue that the Bible faces by not fulfilling the prophetic dream of Joseph. So how does it do it, and how does the Quran actually tell this narrative? So let's take a look in the chapter known as Yusuf or Joseph in the Quran, which is chapter 12, starting out at verse 3. It says, "We relate to you, O Muhammad, the best of stories in what we have revealed to you of this Quran, although you were before it among the unaware." So it was making clear from the outset. The Prophet ﷺ did not know about this. He did not steal it from the Bible or something that he heard or anything like that. It was revealed to him. But we're going to show that definitively here in just a second. Now then, what is the story? How does it begin? Of these stories mention when Joseph said to his father, "O my father, indeed I have seen in a dream 11 stars, and the sun and the moon, I saw them prostrating to me." So again, the exact same wording used, right? 11 stars, which are the brothers, the sun and the moon, which are the mother and the father, according to biblical accounts and according to Christian commentaries. I saw them prostrating to me. Then it says in verse 5, he said, "O my son, do not relate your vision to your brothers, or they will contrive against you a plan. Indeed, Satan to man is a manifest enemy. And thus will your Lord choose you and teach you the interpretation of narratives, events, or dreams, and complete his favor upon you and upon the family of Jacob, as he completed it upon your fathers before, Abraham and Isaac. Indeed, your Lord is knowing and wise." So not only does the Quran clearly relate the story, referring to the exact same account, right, by saying the 11 stars and the sun and the moon, but then it says that, look, your Lord chose you and taught you the interpretation of dreams. So he's not going to lead you astray with this, and he will complete his favor upon you by fulfilling this, right? So you will see this happen. Now, if we fast forward through the story, there are many other things that happen, and we go down to verse 90. We see here, starting out at verse 90 in the same chapter, they said, his brothers now, "Are you indeed Joseph?" He said, "I am Joseph, and this is my brother. Allah has certainly favored us. Indeed, he who fears Allah is patient. Then indeed Allah does not allow to be lost the reward of those who do good." They said, "By Allah, certainly has Allah preferred you over us, and indeed we have been sinners," meaning they're admitting that they were wrong and they're repenting. Then he says to him, right, Joseph says to his brothers, he said, "No blame will there be upon you today. May Allah forgive you, and he is the most merciful of the merciful." So we see how are the brothers towards the end of the story, right? They are now coming to see who Joseph actually is. They're repenting and they are obeying him. But what about the mother and the father, the sun and the moon? Remember, does the Quran actually clear up the narrative of Joseph's mother? So it mentions now further down in verse 99, "And when they entered upon Joseph, he took his parents to himself," i.e. embraced them, and said, "Entered Egypt, Allah willing, safe and secure. And he raised his parents upon the throne." Wait, not just the father, right? The father and the mother now. "And he raised his parents upon the throne, and they bowed to him in prostration. And he said, O my father, this is the explanation of my vision of before," meaning it's been fulfilled. "My Lord has made it reality, and he was certainly good to me when he took me out of prison and brought you here from Bedouin life after Satan had induced estrangement between me and my brothers. Indeed, my Lord is subtle in what he wills. Indeed, it is he who is the knowing, the wise." So the mother and the father now, the parents, are prostrating before Joseph in fulfillment, or Yusuf alayhi salam in fulfillment of the dream. Then verse 101, "My Lord, you have given me something of sovereignty and taught me of the interpretation of dreams. Creator of the heavens and earth, you are my protector in this world and the hereafter. Cause me to die a Muslim and join with me the righteous." So we see very clearly here, how is the Quran avoiding the same problem as the Bible? Well, first off, notice that the Quranic narrative never says that Joseph, Yusuf alayhi salam's mother, died, which the Bible does say, and therefore it cannot fulfill the dream where the mother is said to appear and bow down before Yusuf alayhi salam. So the Quran explicitly or conspicuously leaves out the fact that his mother died, because it doesn't say that, because it knows that that would lead to a false prophecy. And then in fulfillment of the prophecy in the dream and the promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, explicitly says that the parents, meaning the mother and the father, right, are bowing down before Joseph. Now, subhanAllah, I mean, this is amazing as a Muslim to read this, to see the meticulous correcting that the Quran does of the Bible. So now, how can you say that the author of the Quran means by those verses that these people like to appeal to with the Islamic dilemma, that, oh yeah, it's just, completely endorsing the Bible? And then people want to say, well, Jake, when the Quran contradicts the Bible, it's because it's out of its ignorance. No, if you look at the wording in the original prophecy in the dream, it has the same exact wording. And then when it comes to the bowing down, explicitly mentions the parents and never mentioned the mother anywhere dying in the story. So when you start, again, piling all and more of these examples on, it's beyond probability to say that the Quran is ignorant of what the Bible says, or that the Quran knows what the Bible says and is completely endorsing it. No, the Quran is aware of what the Bible says. It is not endorsing it wholesale, and it corrects it on theological matters where it needs to be corrected. And this is a prime example of this. Now, I just want to read from this text, which is called The Bible and the Quran, the biblical figures in the Islamic tradition. And this is by John Kaltner and Eunice Y. Mirza. Okay, and this is from page 102. The text goes through a bunch of different prophetic figures, but in this chapter here, or this part here, it's talking about Joseph. And this is on page 102. So it says, Joseph/Yusuf is reunited with his entire family at the end of the story, including his father Jacob, or Yaqub, whom he cures of his blindness. And this is mentioned in the Quranic account. Also mentioned for the first time in the Quran is his unnamed mother, who died in childbirth when Benjamin was born in the Genesis version, and so does not play a role in the biblical story of Joseph/Yusuf. And it gives Genesis chapter 35, which I mentioned earlier, where she was said to die. So very clearly, these two authors are mentioning that the Quran did not say that the mother of Joseph died, mentions at the end that she was bowing down in fulfillment of the prophecy or the dream, whereas the Bible makes the promise that she would, and then doesn't play a role in the biblical story at all. So I have two challenges to the Christian apologists who like to make the claim that the Quran is completely endorsing the Bible wholesale. How could that be the case when it's meticulously correcting a failed prophecy in the Bible? And secondly, apart from the Islamic dilemma argument, how do you guys account for this? And was that ever fulfilled? Was Joseph's vision of his mother bowing down to him ever fulfilled? How could it possibly be when she was dead? Leah and the other mother-like figures didn't do it either anyway. With that being said, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video and found it educational. If you did and would like to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell so you get notified of future videos. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel, as I said. Share this with your friends and family and on your social media platforms, no matter how big or how small they are. It really does help with the algorithm. And if you want to go above and beyond and support the channel, then the best way to do so is at the GoFundMe link, which is pinned at the top of the description of this video, as well as my other videos. With that being said, guys, until next time, inshallah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.